Hello learners, welcome back to this channel. In the previous videos we talked about some basic Excel formulas, or rather functions, which were sum, count, if, sum if and count if functions. Then in the next video we talked about an extended version of sum if and count if functions, that were sum ifs and count if function. Today we are going to explore 7 other new Excel formulas which are equally interesting as the previous ones, and which can be used to manipulate the similar kind of data. So if you haven't watched the previous 2 videos yet, go watch them. The link to both the videos is in the description. And without wasting any more time, let's get started with this one. So the first function I would like to talk about today is the average function. So let me ask you one thing. What comes to your mind when you hear the word average? Average, as the word suggests, or I would say, is the mean, is the mean value. That means it is a value lying in the middle of a particular series of observations. That is, if you have 7 numbers and the average of those 7 numbers would mean that what is the value that is lying between those 7 numbers. That said, if I had to find the average of these 5 numbers, so that means that I have to find the value in between these numbers. That if I say that that could correctly define the number. That means if I say the average of this number is 79, that means I could probably say that each number is approximately equally close to the number 79. So that is what an average or a mean means. And this average function could be used to find a percentage. In this case, mind you, the percentage and average are different in a way that the percentage is always carried out of 100, right? But the percentage is not. Percentage is a measure of a number, and it is independent from the cent, that is the 100. So but here in this case we can use average to calculate the percentage in a way that these marks are out of 100, right? So if I calculate the average of these marks, that would also come out to be out of 100, right? So here we could use pretty well the average function for the percentage. So here we can use. So what I will do is, first of all, I will just copy these values down to some other cells. What I will do is Control C, and I will just paste these values. Rather than pressing Control V, I would just have the paste options. Here is the paste options. This is the 1 2 3 on a clipboard. That means paste the values, not the formula. Since this percentage was a formula, so I will just paste the value as it is, and you can see the values are pasted here. Now what I will do is I will just remove all these values. Our remarks are gone, never mind. So I will click to this FX box, type in average, press enter, press OK, and what I will have to average is 2. It is asking for number 1 and number 2. So what I will do is I will type in the range of C2 to G2 in the number 1 column, and I will leave the number 2 column as it is, because I don't want to have any other number. I just want to have the average between this range. And you can see there is a prelim result of 79.8. I will press in OK. As you can see, it is the exact same value which was manually calculated with a mathematical formula to calculate the percentage. So I will just copy down the formula down to the bottom cell, that is L11, and you can see the percentages are exactly the same as we did it before. You can see that 78.9, 79.8, 81.4, 65.6, 65.6, and all other values are matching actually, 59.6, and these remarks were returned back, so it was never ever concern anywhere. So this is where you can use the average function when you have to calculate the percentage given the marks out of 100, because the marks are generally calculated out of 100, so we can use average to calculate the percentage as well. And another use of average could be here. So suppose I want to calculate the average of the marks, of the total marks of the students of this class. What I will do is I will again go to the average function, and I will give the range of H2 to H11 and leave rest of the columns untouched. and I will press in OK. You can see the value turned out to be 369.2. That means that the students of this class, that these 10 students of this class, approximately each of them scored 369.2 marks out of 500. So this is where the average actually works. Here we used average as a workaround to calculate the percentage, because the marks were given out of 100. But average could fail to calculate the percentage where the marks aren't out of 100. So beware of that. Now what I will do is, sometimes people want the percentage in number, in exact numbers, not in decimals. People don't like these decimals coming after this number, so this could be manipulated using the int function. What int function is it will calculate the value and it will return back to you the integer part of the value. Suppose this is 79.8. when I implement the int function into this, that is the integer function, it will return to me 79 irrespective of what is coming after the decimal, to the right place of the decimal. Okay, now here the formula is already implemented. So what I can do is, I can't go to the formula box and type in another formula. I can do one thing. I could go to this formula bar and I will type in int and opening and closing brackets towards the end and press in enter. Mind you, the Excel is case insensitive, so it doesn't matter to it that if you type the letters or formulas in uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't matter to it. I will press in enter. You can see that 79.8 got converted to 79, and I will do this for all the columns, all the rows, and you can see all the values were converted to the integer value, integer parts of them. Note that it is never in a kind of a round function. It is never a kind of a rounding off. It is just the integer part of any of the value you are passing to the integer function is, and this here is called the nested function. See, you can see there is a function inside a function, that is the average inside the int. So this is called a nested function. So what it will do is, it will first of all implement this formula average on C2 to G2, and then this value will be passed to integer as the value. Okay, now it will convert this value to the integer. This is called the nested function. The value, the function in the function which is the innermost function will be calculated first, and it will go towards the outer functions and goes on calculating. You can have as many nested formulas you want. So what I will do is, the next function we will be talking about is the round function. So as you might be aware, a minute back I told you about the rounding off. This is not a rounding off, this is an integer, while rounding off actually rounds off the values. So what we can use, make use of round here is here. In this individual weightage mathematics marks, we can round off these values to nearest integers or nearest tens or nearest hundreds. So before going into that, I will just explain it to you with the help of a number. I will just search up round and press OK. I will type in a number. Say I have to type in a number 65.4 and the number of digits. Let's read the description of this num digits. What this parameter says is the number of digits to which you want to round. Negative rounds to the left of the decimal point, 0 to the nearest integer. So if we have to round this number off to the nearest integer, I will just type in 0, and there you go, it typed out 65. If it was 65.7, it would have rounded off to 66 because it is rounding off to the nearest zeros. What if I type in -1? Sorry. What if I typed in -1? It valued out to be 70. That means -1 is the number of zeros you want the value to be rounded off to. I want this value to be rounded off to the nearest tens, that is nearest tens, either towards 60, either towards 70. So what it did is, because it is the value, the middle value of 60 and 70 is 65, right? And this value is greater than 65, so it printed out 70. Now if it were 2, so what it will print is 100, I suppose. Yes, 100 it printed, because now I have to round this number off to the nearest hundreds. So the nearest 100 would be either 0 or 100, right? 100. But the value between 0 and 100 is 50, right? And this value is greater than 50, so this value was rounded off to 100. Had this value been 43 or something less than 50, say this, it rounded off to 0, you see. And if I done it -1, it would have been 40, because the nearest tens is 40. So this is what a round function does. But here we don't mind it at all. I have to just round the value to the nearest integer. Now what I will do is, I will go to this, and again this is a formula, right? So I can't have a formula box right with me. I will just type in round and 0. This means the nearest integer. So I will just close this bracket and press enter. It rounded the value to 20, because it was 20.3 blah 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 blah. It rounded this value off to 20. I will just copy this formula down to the cell I11, and you can see it rounded off all the values to their nearest decimals. Now another function which could be pretty handy in this case is the round up function. Round up function is similar to the round function but different in a way to round, that it only rounds up, it never rounds down. So what I will do is this, select the round up function. I will just type in a number, say I have to type in 34.2. What I do is, I will just type in 0. It will print out to be 35. Why? Because it was round up function. Despite this value being lesser than 34.5, it never rounded off to 34. It rather rounded off to 35, because it is always a round up function. So and all the other things are similar in the round up function to the round up function. All we did with the negatives, all we did with the positives. See here, there is a catch. If I typed in -2, remember this value was lesser than 50, it should have been rounded off to 0 rather than 100. But because the nearest 100 could be either 0 or 100, and since it is a round up function, it only rounded off to 100 rather than 0. So this is what a round up function is, right? I will do another thing in this as well. I will just append up after round and will press enter. This becomes a round up function. See, it 20.3 becomes 21, and I will copy this formula. There are a few changes, as you can see. Another similar function to round and round up is the round down function. A round down function, as the name suggests, it does the exact opposite of the round up function. It always round downs the value. Round down here. Okay, see, the number is say 65.7 and the number of digits is 0. Still the number was rounded down to 65 rather than being 66. Similarly is the case with -1. It rounded off to 60 rather being rounded up to 70. It would be the same case with -2 as well. It will round it off to 0. Yes, you can see, because it always rounds down. So this is the exact function round down, what exactly round down does. You can do this as well with the round up, round down here as well. Remove up and just append down here and press enter. See, 21 now becomes 20, and I will just copy this formula down to the bottom. You see there are slight changes in this column. This is because of the rundown function. Now another function which comes in pretty handy in manipulating these kinds of data is the floor and ceiling functions. Round off round up and round down functions are actually useful in these kind of scenarios, but a ceiling and floor function are a kind of a biased functions. It always ceiling, what a ceiling does in the general language mean, it means that the top of a house, right? Ceiling is the top of a house and floor is the bottom of the house. So what it does is the ceiling function always rounds the value to the top value, and the floor function rounds down the value. It is different from round function in a way I will show you right now. This is the ceiling function. Okay, the number is say 34.2. right now. This is a new parameter, significance. Now what if I typed in 1? It will round it up to 35. It will not round it up to 34, not 33, anything, but it will round it up to 35 because the significance was 1. Now if we read the description of significance, it says significance is the multiple to which you want to round. That means the number you will type in significance, it would act as the rounding off feature. So see, if I type in 2, what it did is it printed out 36. That means it rounds this number to the nearest multiple of the number you have typed in significance. See, the number nearest, remember ceiling will always go up, not down, so always this value will be greater than 35, 34 or 35, right? So the significance was significance is this 2. So the number will be rounded off in a way that the number should be a multiple of the value you have typed in the significance, right? So 36, 34.2, the value after 34.2, which is a multiple of 2, is only 36, so it rounded off to 36. 35 is not a multiple of 2, right? So it didn't round it up to 35. But when I pressed in 1, because 1 everyone is a multiple of 1, so it rounded off this number to 35. Now if I typed in 2, it rounded it off to 36 because the nearest number to 34.2, which is a multiple of 2, is 36. Similarly is the case with 3. So it typed in, it returned 36 because the nearest multiple of 3 to this number is 36, so it rounded it off to 36. Okay, so this is what a ceiling function does. Now what I will do is I will do a ceiling function to this individual weightage marks. What I will do is I will type in 1, right? It printed out to 21. I will copy this formula down to the bottom and see, there are a few changes. It all turned out to be a ceiling of every other decimal values. Okay, similar function, similar way there is a floor function. Let me explain it to you as well, that one as well. This is the floor function. Now it does the exact opposite of what a ceiling function does. Suppose I typed in a number, the similar number, say 32.4, right? And I type in a significance of 1. So remember, it will always go down, and 1, everyone is a multiple of 1, so the number will be rounded off to 32, right here. Now if I typed in 2, what should have come? It should be 32 because the number that is a multiple of 2 nearest to 32.4 and going down is only 32, right? So it printed out 32. Now what if I typed in 3? So the nearest multiple to 32.3, 32.4 of 3 is 30, right? Which is going down, so it will turn out to be 30, right? So this is what a floor function does is. Now what I will do, replace this ceiling with the floor function and see the changes, right? Here you go. It was 20.3 something, right? After there were a lot of values after the decimal, and it didn't matter to me. Only the first value after the decimal did matter to me. It was 3. So 20.3 was rounded off to 20 because the significance was 1, that is to the nearest integer. Floor it down to the nearest integer, single integer. I will copy this formula down to the bottom, and here you go. So to recap, we learned 7 new cool formulas today, and they were related to each other in a way that they were rounding off a particular value. And these functions aren't concise to the specific data I am using here. It could be used in any walks of life. The scope of these formulas is too much, and I couldn't emphasize more on learning these formulas or functions by heart, because if you're going to work in Excel, you are going to work with these functions on a daily basis, I suppose. So I hope this video was easily understandable and you liked it. If you like this video, please press the like button and share it with your friends and relatives to whom you think this video could be important to. And if you want to get hold of videos, such easy to learn videos, please subscribe to our channel, and I will be coming up with another cool video within a few days. Till then, you can play around with these formulas, learn these functions with heart, so that you could use it, practice it as much as you can, so that it comes to your habit. And I will be available to you in the next video with some other cool formulas. Till then, you play with these functions, and au revoir.